Hey Turo host, this is Patrick with TTFR. I've been meaning to get to this as I got some of my data consolidated and wanted to have a 2021 recap, how I did this year, things I've learned. This is my second full year of Turo hosting, and I have 3 cars now, and just kind of wanted to go over how everything went. Just kind of start out. This is my sheet. My revenue shows a little bit higher. It includes some revenue that actually bled over to January, but I think I ended up with about 33,500 total revenue for the year. Total profit, as I calculate it, in some ways, 14,692. You will see some of that isn't exactly what some people might consider total profit, but I'll go over some of those numbers. Average income per day for all of my vehicles, $68 a day. Going down to my convertible was $72 per day. My small 2-door BMW sedan, a newer car, was $58 a day. It started out real low at the beginning of the year, but it's been a real workhorse and has not had much maintenance, so it actually made a whole lot more money than the other cars. Actually around the same as the other 2 cars combined. And the SUV that I added around March, it was at $76 a day. Good thing this coming year, I think things are going up as far as that goes. But let me get into the numbers. So as far as overall days out, I had a 514 total days out for my vehicles over the year. Put about 40,000 miles on the 3 vehicles. Talked about a monthly income of, or a total income for the year being a little over 34,000, including some of the, like I said, the trips that go into January. Made about $3,200 in delivery fees over the year, and 530 in extras. I don't make a lot in extras, so if you're a person that's interested in purchasing the spreadsheet that I use, that you're seeing here, or have already purchased it, I don't do a lot of data work with extras because I just don't earn that many. Others probably do, but I don't focus on those. Income by car by month. Every car was over 10,000 total income, and they all 3 averaged $1,000 a month in income. And days out by car I track, just kind of make sure that I'm doing this part-time, and I try to keep it right around there. And because part of the reason I do Turo is so I can have interesting cars to drive for myself. And as you can see, for the 3 cars, 2 cars averaged being out about half the time, 15 days a month. And then my workhorse, the 230i, was out 18 days a month. It tends to get rented a lot. And miles by car, they're all pretty similar as far as average, somewhere in between 1,100 and 1,300 a month for all the cars. And average income per day per car, we covered all that. It goes up and down, fluctuates as you can see throughout the year. Started out real low at the beginning of the year when we weren't getting a whole lot of money for our vehicles, and then around summer, spring to summer, it started getting real good. And around Christmas for me, it was pretty good too. Delivery income, average somewhere around $100, $110 a month in delivery income. That's been going up for me, especially towards the end of the year, as you can see there. Extras by car, once again, don't want to get a lot of extras. So, in profit is the next thing I'm going to cover. Profit by car. I track profit basically 3 different ways. Profit by a car without depreciation, which is what you see in the dashboard. And then profit by car including depreciation, which I calculate monthly by checking what it shows to be worth on NADA bookings on the internet. And so before depreciation for my convertible, I ended up with about $3,700 in profit for that car. The 230, $7,700, and then the Q7, $3,100. If you Then calculate in including depreciation, that goes down a bit, and I'm at only 900 for the year for the Z4. It significantly depreciated in certain months, and had a pretty large loss in the last month. I'll discuss that a little bit later in the video. It's been down for a month and a half now, and took a solid loss. The 230 has made 3,700, including depreciation. Took a big hit in depreciation this last month as it became a non-CPO car. And then the Q7, my big SUV, right at 2,200-ish. And overall, $6,900 in profit for the year. I'll compare that to the hours I put in. I look at that sometimes and I'll think, hey, that's not that much. But then I'm also not including the unrealized gains, because Turo is paying, my car payments. So all my principal payments are going towards lessening my loans. So if you include that, it's around 17,000 in profit. Expenses per car. The Z4 was most expensive for me. 8,200 throughout the year. The 230 was 48, and the Q7 was 6,800. The newer cars tend to have less maintenance. This is kind of a flyer for me in figuring out what works. And the older cars have been more of headaches. But they're cheaper, and I get higher rates for them. So in some ways it evens out. And they're cars that I enjoy having too. So maintenance by car. Z4 has ended up with 1,500 in maintenance. That doesn't include this current maintenance issue it has right now, so that'll add to it a little bit. Most of it's under warranty, and actually I will actually profit by that, and actually it may come out positive for maintenance after all is said and done with this maintenance issue right now. Only 1,000 in maintenance on the 230i, and my big SUV close to 2,000 in maintenance. I had a couple issues with that throughout the year that had to be fixed. I had a harmonic balancer go out on it that was covered under warranty mostly, and then I had a blower motor for the heater, and cooling went out as well. And let me move on to depreciation. The Z4 depreciated $1,800 throughout the year. The big hit on the 230i was it becoming a non-CPO, which makes it worth less. So it took $4,000 in depreciation. The Q7, surprisingly, only $925 in depreciation so far this year. This has been a weird year for used cars, so we know what's going on with that. And I will go into labor monthly. I was talking about the profits. Made about, if you count depreciation and all, I was only at like $6,900 in profit. But obviously I had 3 cars that were at least almost half the time at my use. And I put in about 85 hours. This is an estimate right now. I've been tracking this pretty tightly the last 2 months or 3 months now. But I did make some estimations throughout the year based on what it takes me to time-wise to drop off for an airport delivery, things like that, and what I typically put in as far as cleaning time in the vehicles. So I was at about 85 hours for the entire year for 3 cars. So for me, I think Turo's working. These are the kind of things I like to track to make sure if I'm actually making money or if it's worthwhile. I also learned a lot of things, and based on this data, I use all this to figure out how to do this all better. So let me go to 2022 and see where we're at and just kind of show you how I'm trying to do better. This is the new sheet that I use. All the reservations are added now here. And what I've added over on this far right side is a per trip profit. That's not actually in the sheet yet that I sell. I'm going to fine tune it a little bit because I want to know on each individual trip what kind of percentage profit I made. And as you can see, it ranges here from 97, 98, all the way down to 84. I think on this one I had a parking fee, and it wasn't it was a one-day trip, I think. So one-day trips are not profitable, and as far as time as well. So I try to, one of the things I changed last year that started making my life a whole lot easier was making my trips a minimum of 2 days. And even when I was trying to really pull out the stops during Formula One weekend, and we have Austin City Limits here and the MotoGP weekend. I did change that to one-day trips and had quite a few one-day trips, but those, like I said, don't end up being real profitable trips. But labor monthly in the new sheet, tracking that right now, it looks really high because I don't have any expenses in, so the profit's skewed right now. But for 2022, looking at my dashboard, my average income per day right now is accurate. The rest of the stuff, I haven't paid any bills, so profit's not really accurate right now. As you can see, car 1 for me is my Z4 and has had no trips this month, and it's all at 0. But the car 2 for me is the 230 two-door sedan and is way higher than it was. It's almost an $80 a day average, so I'm cranking that up. And then the Q7 SUV is almost $10 a day higher than it was last year on average. So moving in the right direction, and this is the kind of data that helps you do that. Yeah, I wanted to talk real quickly about Turo taxes. For me, I have my day job and make what I make at that, and pay what taxes I pay at that, and sell some stock, things like that. That all has tax implications. So for me, Turo helps me with my tax situation. It doesn't work for everybody, and for most people, you should probably consult with a tax professional. But for me, over the last year and then now this year, I have the ability to not only write off expenses, daily expenses for Turo, due to some of the Tax Cut and Job Act. There are some bonus depreciation that you can apply to vehicles if you've purchased them just for Turo, and I do that, and we'll write off the SUV that I purchased last year. And that will help my overall tax situation. Doesn't work for everybody, and you have to comply with all of the rules for that, and it's fairly complex. You need to read through all of it or have somebody do it for you that does that for a living. I can actually write off right now, with those laws in effect, the entire purchase price of the car in one individual year. It's called bonus depreciation. And like I said, there are rules that apply to that, and you have to use the car for at least 50%. That's why I track in my spreadsheet. Let me go to here. You can see over here, I'm counting miles on the vehicle, yearly miles, Turo yearly miles. So that gives me a percentage that for use for Turo, my business use for the vehicle, and that needs to be over 50%. So I track that every month. I don't use these cars for much other than Turo, so I'm usually up around 80% on these cars. So just wanted to talk about taxes a little bit. A lot of people don't talk about it, I think, because they're afraid they're going to lead people astray, which is easy to do. That's why I say, you got to check your own tax situation and see if it applies. If you have a day job and being able to write off this kind of depreciation in a year is helpful for your individual tax situation, it's something you should look at. There are some rules that you need to understand about that, and one of them is that if you take a 1-year depreciation, generally cars are depreciated around 5 years. So you need to keep the car in Turo use for those 5 years, even if you take the depreciation all in 1 year. And if you don't keep it in use for 5 years, there are tax implications for that. In general, you have to pay it back. It would end up counting as income, which you did write off earlier. So that's all I wanted to say about that. In covering Turo 2022, I would be remiss to not comment on the big news that Turo has filed for their IPO, which is something that could be pretty lucrative for us hosts if everything pans out the way it's looking like it will right now. Read a few things from like The Verge and TechCrunch, and listened to a podcast called This Week in Startups, and basically Turo is looking to generate $100 million with an initial public offering of stock. And as with Airbnb, us as hosts, we will actually be probably allowed to purchase stock at the price that they ultimately listed at. Which for Airbnb, they listed their stock at I think $63 or $68 a share or something like that, and then it actually opened at $146 a share, I think, which basically means you bought stock at half the price that it ended up being worth. Over a year later, Airbnb stock hasn't skyrocketed, but I think it's believe it's at $163 a share now, so it hasn't lost value, and you could have doubled your money at day one, basically. There are rules that are involved in when you can sell sometimes for people like us, and which is even different from people that actually work for Turo. But it's definitely something I wanted to talk about a little bit. And there is, I guess, considerations as to whether you just want to get out and take your money and run. There's obviously tax implications if you don't hold stock for at least a year. You pay a different capital gains rate for that stock. But Turo and the podcast I was listening to did kind of a 10-year estimation of where Turo might be. The podcast wasn't super, I didn't feel like it was super accurate, and they didn't seem like they actually knew a whole lot about Turo. Turo does have its issues, but I think some of the things that are facing Turo in the long term actually could be, that they thought were negatives, actually could end up being positives. One of the pressures that they thought that Turo would face over the next 10 years is autonomous driving car markets, where you, I guess, would hail a vehicle from an app, and the car would come to you and drive you wherever you want to go. It's something that Tesla has been talking about. But if I'm thinking what could possibly happen is, since Turo is already in this business, already has an app, already has Turo Go, that the money that they generate from the IPO may end up going to increase technology that might allow them. Think of how many Teslas are in any individual market right now. It's kind of saturated for Teslas right now. I think people are having a hard time making money doing that. But if we have that many Teslas, then I think we could probably see that Turo might actually develop an app to allow you to rent a Tesla if it's an autonomous driving vehicle. So I think that actually could be a positive. But anyway, I'm excited about that. Saving some money for the IPO, and hope maybe you guys are too. And you guys have a good rest of your start of 2022. Bye.